Church. They came from Los Angeles and San Francisco, or about the distance from Moscow to Bombay. They came from Cleveland, from Chicago, or about the distance from Buenos Aires to Rio de Janeiro. They came from Jackson, Mississippi, from Birmingham, Alabama, or about the distance from Johannesburg to Dar es Salaam. By the end of August 1963, in some places in the United States, a Negro could not go to school where he chose, ate where he wished, or build his home where it pleased him, or find jobs for which he was qualified. He had been insulted, beaten, jailed, drenched with water, chased by dogs, but he was coming to Washington. He said to swallow up hatred, to overcome violence by peaceful protests. Many predicted violence. Negro groups trained themselves to overwhelm it. Armed with two-way portable radios, volunteers scattered throughout the march would keep watch should violence come that day. They would call for help. Each one would have a code name: freedom, equality, justice, jobs. The Constitution of the United States guarantees every American the right to protest peaceably. 200,000 Americans then were going to use this right. 350 years ago, the white man came to America. 350 years ago, the Negro came to America. One as master and one as slave. 100 years ago, Abraham Lincoln declared as the president of this great nation, declared that henceforward all slaves would be set free. Now, both black and white Americans were preparing to march to say that a century later, the black man was still completely not free. If I'm not free, then you are not free. If one man on earth is partly enslaved, the world is not free. It was every man's duty then to help every other man. In New York, volunteers worked for 2 days and 2 nights to make lunches for the march. They made 80,000 cheese sandwiches. The attitude of Congress was divided, and the attitude of the White House was not. From the beginning, President Kennedy was favorably inclined to and defended the right of civil rights riders to parade on the Capitol. He even invited leaders from the march to meet with him in the White House afterward. The president praised both marchers for their careful, and their leaders for their careful preparation and orderly conduct. He promised that the government would continue efforts to obtain increased employment and eliminate discriminating practices. In the words of A. Philip Randolph, I think history was written today, which will have its effect on the coming generations, with respect to our democracy, with respect to our ideals, and with respect to the great struggle of man towards freedom and human dignity. There were many who praised this day and said there had been a new awakening in the conscience of the nation. Others called it a national disgrace. In the wake of this day, more violence was to come and more hatred. But in the long history of man's cruelty against man, this was a day of hope. And today is August 28, 1963. Freedom to justice, what's your 20?
I'm over at the Lincoln Memorial with the thorn tree, receiving the delivery of the audio equipment. Do you copy?
Copy that. When they're set up, be sure to do a mic check. And when you guys are done, head over to the entrance of the park to set up the cones for the buses. We think it's going to be a couple hundred.
A couple hundred? Even with trouble with those coming from the south.
Well, let's hope so. I'm praying a little harassment won't stop them. Lord knows we've been through it all, and we've got a long way to go.
Well, I hope they show, or else all the cheese from those sandwiches is going to overflow the reflection pool. I ain't never seen so many brown paper bags in my life.
Wait, so you mean to tell me the bag lunches from New York finally got here? One more thing I can check off my list.
That's affirmative. We're over at the monument. They're setting up the tables now. Distributing are going to be over there.
10-4.
Justice to freedom. Do you want me to put the final copy of the speeches underneath the podium so that we're not looking for them later?
Negative. We don't need any surprises. You know what happened when Mr. Lewis's first draft got out. The others had so many objections, they asked him to tone it down.
Well, what did it say?
Child, he badmouthed President Kennedy's civil rights bill, questioned the intentions of the government, and told him we were going to march through the heart of Dixie and burn Jim Crow to the ground. Non-violently, of course. Now, he did agree to tone it down, but you know how feisty those young SNCC people are.
Yeah, and we don't want to send the wrong impression to the marchers. I would hate for them to get riled up and with all the police present they planned on having today.
No, Justice, you keep those speeches right in your bag. And Justice, make sure you keep those envelopes sealed.
Roger that. I wonder what Dr. King is planning to say. I bet he's going to go into his I have a dream thing.
Now, what makes you think that?
Oh, before I forget, I have the programs here with me. Where should I put them?
You can leave them on the stage. I'll be over shortly to take care of them.
Speaking of the program, did they ever decide on who was speaking last?
You know, I'm not sure. I haven't seen it myself. If you could, when you're done at the lunch station, go to the memorial to ensure that the seating is appropriate for all the participants.
10-4.
Good. That's one more thing I can check on my list.
Okay, seats are situated. Now let's make sure all the seats from our big six organizers are squared away. We got John Farmers from the Corps, Martin Luther King. We all know he's from SCLC. John Lewis from SCWC. SNCC. Roy Wilkins, NAACP. Minister, Executive Director from the Urban League. Whitney Young Jr. himself. And our leader, A. Philip Randolph from the Brotherhood of Sleeping Quarters. Glory to the God, it's going to be a great day. We might just make history.
Thank you.